I went down, they really felt on my biceps and said, you're a pretty good looking specimen, and I was in good physical condition at that time and had good teeth, and so they said go over and get you a uniform and get you a pistol and come to work the next morning. And so I got a pair of airline pants. Of course, clothes were, real difficult in 1945. You couldn't get clothes.
That's right.
So I got a pair of airline pants and a Navy peacoat because I went to work in December. And I got a hat, and I borrowed an old pistol from a druggist friend of mine, and I reported for duty.
Now,
And,
this was the case, you did furnish your own pistols on the
Oh,
police
yes.
department.
Oh, absolutely. We did this up until the time I became chief. I changed it. But anyway, I went down to the corner of Main and Monroe with an older officer, and he said, blow the whistle every time the light changes. And he said, I'll be back in a minute. I'm going to get a cup of coffee. And so I was unleashed on the citizens. And it's humorous. I stayed there until December, and this was a practice back in those days that during the Christmas traffic rush, they'd leave you on a small corner. But during that interim time there, I was a Mason along the Masonic Lodge, and a group of Shriners were coming into the old train station, and the captain come along and got me to go down to help get these people in. And the fellow that took my place at Main and Monroe had to go down to the basement of old Hohenstein's and had a gun battle with a fellow who came in and shot his wife with a shotgun.
Oh, really?
And lo and behold, I found out later this pistol I had wouldn't even shoot. So the good Lord took care of me and removed me from that position. I just missed it by...
You mean there was no kind of training whatsoever? They just...
That's my training.
That was it.
And the next day, I was a full graduate and went to Maine and Gilson. And that was it. And then Bill Rainey came out of the Army, who was an inspector, a controversial individual who had been to the FBI National Academy. And we had about an hour a day for 2 weeks of some form of training. And this was, of course, a year later, I guess, or more than a year later. Right. There was no formal training.
No one even taught you to shoot. Suppose you would not been able to shoot very well.
Well, you were on your own, just go out someplace in the woods and learn how to shoot that thing. That's about what it amounted to, really. No law. It's most amazing. Everything was, including the law, was custom. You had the knives, a weapon law. I can't think of the name of it now. It's been so long. If you had a knife with a blade over a certain length, you were in violation of the law to carry it. And of course, the way they determined this was just put it on the finger. Of course, the fact that people had longer fingers didn't seem to matter. But
if you had a short finger, you made a lot of arrests.
Yeah, right. And that's really the truth of the matter. And of course, they just look at it, including the judges in court at that time. And I went and looked up the law and found out didn't anybody know the law. I finally found a book that had the city ordinances in it, and I had I've always had an interest in anything that I do. I want to learn everything I can about it. It's just my nature, I guess. And
Would this lack of police training in Memphis, would it have been different in other large
no,
cities?
No,
It was
no.
the same everywhere in
Basically
1945?
the same.
Yeah.
It depended. In some of the larger cities, they had some form of training. It didn't amount to a great deal. Most of it was just coming on and learning from the older fella.
Yeah.
And,
well, what about say the discipline on the force or the following of orders and so forth?
Well,
fairly maintained.
It was completely autocratically operated at that point in time.
So that really the officer on the beat had to consider that he was responsible to his superior officers if something went wrong. I mean, this was really, it was a control through the autocratic.
Right, but the real controlling factor was as to how much noise it made. If it was politically bad, we better start dodging. The fact of the matter is, compared to the law to a great degree, it really had no real meaning. It depended on how much the water was interrupted in the community as a whole.
And if you found someone who was in good stead politically, why his knife had better not be too long. Things
that's an oversimplification,
Yeah.
but I think it's probably true.
Or let's say that,
to a degree,
yeah.
it depended on what they had some standards. You know, you couldn't go around killing people or burglarizing or some of the major crimes. In other words, regardless of who you were. But essentially, after Armour came in, this changed to a great degree because we in fact could arrest anybody that violated the law. I don't think there was not that much restraint, but yet on the other hand, there was still this implication here of, you know, your commissioner had to run, and you knew who his friends were, and but it's kind of hard to explain, really. There was not. When I say this, people get the implication that you let his friends alone, but this is not true.
Yeah.
It's not really true.
Yes.
I don't think you'd go out of your way for little infractions or things that really didn't amount to anything. But,
Is it still possible?